Now, on the 16th and final day of the Games, BBC One is heading live to Beijing, together with BBC HD, for the Olympics 2008.
Hello and welcome to the Bird's Nest on the final day of Olympic competition. Here in about 2.5 hours' time, the last athletics gold medal of these games will be decided in the men's marathon. It's a punishing test of body, mind and spirit. Kenya's yet to take gold in this event, but Martin Lell, winner of the last 2 London marathons, leads their formidable challenge. His teammate Luke Kibet won World Championship gold in Osaka a year ago. He's been promoted from Kenyan Team Reserve to make his Olympic glory bid. Defending champion Stefano Baldini of Italy competes, although like Paula Radcliffe before him has been hampered by a stress fracture of the leg. Diminutive Dan Robinson carries British hopes, 12th and then 11th at the last 2 World Championships. Dan's got a top 10 gold today. Well, in the commentary box for us today for the marathon, as always, Brendan Foster and Steve Cram. And guys, Kenya well overdue in this event. Could we see something special from their guys today?
Well, we could. It's interesting. Martin Lell, who is perhaps the best known of the Kenyan athletes who are here, certainly to regular marathon viewers, his exploits in London and other big city marathons, but this is a very different environment. I think we've said many times before, major championships don't really tend to suit favourites, to be honest, and conditions tend to have a big role to play. So although we've seen Martin Lell sprinting up the Mall in London on fairly cool April afternoons, or April mornings indeed, this is a very different kettle of fish. Having said that, obviously, I think it's very good to see some of the best and the biggest names in world marathon running. No Haile Gebrselassie, of course, he's decided not to come because of what he thought were going to be debilitating conditions. But it's good to see the likes of Martin Lell here, and certainly with him and Wanjiru in the team, and indeed Luke Kibet, the world champion from last year, they've got a very good chance. Brendan?
I think that's right, but this is not a London Marathon or a New York Marathon. It's not one of the major city events that's held in the autumn or the spring. This is the Olympic Games Championship held in conditions that these athletes wouldn't normally bother to run. If there was a marathon in Beijing here today and it was just one of the regular big city marathons, they wouldn't be here because the weather, we're just looking overhead, the skies are clearing, it's beginning to get warmer. Haile Gebrselassie, who predicted that it was going to be too hot, he might actually be right, Steve. He might be a better marathon weather predictor than you are. But never mind, it's going to be a great race and this is one of the races where you wouldn't even go to the bookies to bet on because it's so open and everything depends on the conditions and who overcomes them the most.
Well, Brendan, Steve, the conditions 4 years ago in Athens were hot, oppressive, and yet there was a European winner, Stefano Baldini of Italy. He's had his troubles though in the build-up to this one.
Catch him. There's De Lima as Baldini comes into the home straight.
He actually stays away from it and then he finishes faster for the last 10,000 metres than anybody we've ever seen before. His style is such, but I think he's going to be struggling today. He's had problems, he's had injuries. He's a fantastic runner. He times his seasons towards the big championships, but I think age and the miles on the clock finally caught up with him.
And guys, what about the American challenge? Ryan Hall, he's from a place called Big Bear City, I think, in the USA. He's got a big heart. He only made his marathon debut last year in London.
Well, Steve spends a lot of his time on American websites, so I'll ask Steve to explain that to you.
Well, they've got very, very high hopes, and I think one thing you can say is that the American distance squad as a whole have come here in very good shape. They've had a fantastic last couple of years, and Ryan Hall has shown that he's well capable of running with the best in the world, as we saw in London, the pictures you're just seeing now. And I think the Americans could go well. They've also got Dathan Ritzenheim. The big thing is going to be the conditions and how they cope with that, and really how the race is run. But I think Ryan Hall he apparently is in very good shape. The Americans, as I said, have got very high hopes, as they would do. So I expect him to go pretty well, but I think they just have to be very careful. This is a whole new experience. We will keep labouring this point. I'm sorry if it sounds as though we will, but it will be very, very different. The World Championship last year in Osaka, and it was very hot, was won in 2:15. That's a very slow time. And I think you have to accept that and understand that, and have a mindset coming into this, which is very different to those big city marathons.
Okay, gentlemen, thanks for now. So what of the British challenge? Well, Dan Robinson won Commonwealth Games bronze in 2006, and he's been just outside the top 10 in the last 2 World Championships. I spoke to him in Macau just ahead of the Games, and this is what he had to say.
You've really cemented your place as an integral part of the British team since Athens, and you're growing with each race, it seems. So tell me how the development's gone as far as you see it.
I think championships, I think the races suit me in a way. It's not, I haven't got the fastest personal best out there, but when it's maybe a tough conditions, a hilly course, it's all about position, not time. I think the championships just tend to suit me, and yeah, they've gone. The last 3 or 4 years, it's gone really well, and they've just progressed. I'm really pleased with it.
You're talking about the conditions last year in Osaka. You showed you could handle it and coming 11th. Are you expecting the conditions to be very much the same, or subtly different?
I think pretty much the same. I think the pollution's the other issue. You can't really get acclimatised to that, but the heat and humidity you can get acclimatised to it, and you can adjust your race pace accordingly.
When you look back on how you started out your career in marathon running to where you are now, do you ever surprise yourself how much you've been able to achieve?
Definitely. If someone had said 8, 9 years ago you'd be a double Olympian and bronze medalist in the Commonwealth Games, I wouldn't have believed it. So yeah, it's been, when you're doing it, it doesn't seem like a sort of overnight success that's taken 8 years or 9 years. I think so it's getting out every day and running a 10-mile run in the morning. It's a slog, but yeah, it's when things go well, you don't mind the sacrifice and things. So it's long may it continue.
Well, Brennan, Steve, Dan Robinson was a fun runner just a few years ago, now an Olympian and a decent one at that.
I think you've heard, obviously, Dan talking there about how proud he is, and he should be rightly proud, the fact that he's making major championships all the time. That in itself is an achievement, and he's been steadily improving and learning and adapting, and again, coming back to that point about these big championship marathons, he understands and knows what to do when he gets into these races, and you know what you're going to get from Dan. And he probably wouldn't mind me saying he's perhaps not the most talented athlete that we've ever had as a distance athlete, but he works incredibly hard and he prepares very, very well, and I'm thinking he's going to be well prepared here again today. So expect nothing less than 100% from Dan. He'll probably actually, you can't use the word enjoy these conditions, but he can come to these things like the Olympics and the World Championships, and it's a big stage for him to come and show what the type of runner he is. Brent?
I think that's right, and the sad thing for me is he's here on his own. There should be 3 marathon runners from Great Britain. We've talked during the week about the overall performance of the middle and long distance runners from Great Britain, particularly the men. But we should have enough marathon runners, because Dan is a good athlete. He's not as Steve said, he's not a great talent, but he is a great athlete for applying himself, getting the best out of himself in conditions like this on these big occasions. And he should be at the start line with a couple of others to share a few thoughts with, and even share a bottle of water with when they're getting ready to line up. So I'm pleased for Dan that he's here. His wife's expecting a baby, due any day right now. In fact, it may have already arrived, but Dan's getting on a plane after this today. He'll be stiff when he gets off the other end. But he's a very, very good athlete. He applies himself